You know that feeling, right? Our economy feels like a total roller coaster. One minute things are great, jobs are everywhere, and everyone's optimistic. But then, almost overnight, it feels like we're hitting the brakes, businesses are in trouble, and people are worried. So what is the deal with these wild swings? Let's figure out what's really going on with the economics of boom and bust.
And I mean, these swings can be violent. Just take a look at this. Back in 2005, the U.S. housing market was absolutely on fire. More than 1.2 million new homes sold. But then, boom, the bubble burst. And that crash wasn't just about housing. It kicked off the Great Recession and sent shockwaves through the entire global economy. It was a brutal reminder of how quickly things can change.
And yeah, that brings us to the million-dollar question, the one economists have been wrestling with for centuries. What's driving these crazy cycles? Is our economic system just fundamentally unstable, or are these ups and downs just a normal part of the ride?
Well, to get to the bottom of it, we have to look at a huge debate that sits at the very heart of economics. It's a real clash of the titans, with two totally different ideas about what actually makes an economy run.
So on one side, you've got Jean-Baptiste Say. His whole idea was that our ability to produce things is what really matters. But on the other side, you've got John Maynard Keynes, who came along and said, nope, it's the other way around. If people aren't willing or able to buy stuff, making it doesn't mean a thing. So which is it, supply or demand? All right, let's break down Say's law first. The thinking here is pretty elegant. Every time a business produces something and sells it, that process creates income for everyone involved, the workers, the managers, the owners. And what do they do with that income? They spend it, creating demand for other products. It's this nice, neat, self-powering circle.
But then, the Great Depression happened, and it blew a hole in that neat little theory. Keynes looked around and saw empty factories and millions of people out of work. And he said, look, our ability to supply isn't the problem here. The problem is a total collapse in demand. His big idea was that businesses will only fire up the machines and hire people if they actually think someone's going to buy what they're making.
So that leaves us with this big puzzle, right? Is our economy held back by our ability to make stuff or by our willingness to buy stuff? Well, here's the secret. It's not one or the other. The real answer is it totally depends on the situation. So to solve this puzzle, we need a way to see the whole economy in a single picture. And that's exactly what economists came up with. It's called the Aggregate Demand / Aggregate Supply model, or, the AD / AS model for short. It's a really powerful tool. Okay, let's start with aggregate demand. The easiest way to think about this is just total spending. It's everything that you, me, businesses, and the government buy. It's the sum of all the demand in the entire economy, all rolled into one. And now for the other side of the coin, aggregate supply. This is the total amount of stuff, all the goods and services, what we call real GDP, that all the companies in the country are willing and able to produce and sell. Now here's where it gets really interesting. That aggregate supply curve has a pretty weird shape. It starts off really flat, then it starts to curve up, and then it gets super steep, almost vertical. And that unique shape, that's the key to settling this whole debate.
So when we put those two curves on the same graph, demand and supply, the spot where they cross is what we call the macroeconomic equilibrium. That one single point tells us the overall price level and the total output for the entire economy. It's the sweet spot, where what we're making is perfectly matched by what we're buying.
Okay, this is the aha moment. This is where it all clicks. Because of its unique shape, that aggregate supply curve can be broken down into 3 different zones, and each zone tells a completely different story about how the economy works.
So way over on the left, where the curve is almost totally flat, we call that the Keynesian zone. Just picture an economy that's really struggling. There's high unemployment, factories are sitting idle, things are not good.
Now in this zone, if people suddenly start spending more, if aggregate demand goes up, what happens? Well, businesses can easily hire some of those unemployed workers and fire up those quiet factories. So GDP gets a huge boost, but prices, they barely move. In this situation, demand absolutely creates its own supply. Keynes was right. Okay, now let's jump all the way over to the far right side, where that curve goes nearly vertical. This is the neoclassical zone. Here, the economy is running at full tilt. Almost everyone has a job, factories are cranking out stuff 24/7, we're at full capacity. So what happens if spending increases now? Well, businesses literally can't produce any more stuff. They're already maxed out. So instead of making more, they just start raising prices. And that's inflation. See? In this case, supply is the absolute limit. Say was right.
And of course, most of the time, we're living somewhere in the middle, in the intermediate zone. That's the upward sloping part of the curve. And here, there's a trade-off. If demand goes up, you get some more growth and jobs, which is great, but it also starts to push prices up, giving you a little bit of inflation.
So why does any of this matter? Because this isn't just theory. Knowing which zone the economy is in has massive, real-world implications for what the government should or shouldn't do. Let's play this out. Say the government passes a tax cut. If the economy is deep in a recession, stuck in that Keynesian zone, that tax cut puts more money in people's pockets. They go out and spend it, which shifts aggregate demand to the right. The result? A big jump in economic growth and a lot more jobs with hardly any inflation. Sounds pretty good. But, and this is so important, what happens if you pass that exact same tax cut when the economy is already booming in the neoclassical zone? Well, you get a totally different outcome. GDP barely budges because we're already at max capacity, but prices shoot up. You just get inflation. And this is why economists argue so much about policies like tax cuts. They're often just disagreeing on which zone we're in.
So there you have it. We went from a confusing old debate between two economists to a single, powerful model. A model that gives us a clear framework for understanding the connection between the biggest things in our economy: economic growth, unemployment, and inflation. It all fits together.
And having that framework leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. It's not about whether Keynes or Say was right in some abstract way. The question is, which of their ideas applies to us right here and right now? So, based on everything you see happening out there, which zone do you think our economy is in today?